الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله صلى الله وسلامه عليه. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. استغفر الله ربي. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد، لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة وبعد المعصية. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد، وتقبل شفاعته وارفع درجته. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. لا إله إلا
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة ورضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد عليه وعليه السلام. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك، لا إله إلا أنت. أستغفرك وأتوب إليك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين رب العالمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة وبعد المعصية. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته وارفع درجته. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم. لا إله إلا الله العلي العظيم. سبحان الله رب السماوات السبع ورب الأرض السبع وما فيهن وما بينهن ورب العرش العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين. يا الله يا الله يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلبي على دينك. اللهم اغفر المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين رب العالمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. Inshallah, ziyarat will be recited after the end of the program. Let us all recite a loud salawat and start getting ready for the program. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajah. Requesting volunteers to please pick up the tables and move them aside. I would like to request Brother Zunair Wasim to come forward and begin the program with the recitation of the Holy Quran with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد أنزلنا إليكم آيات مبينات ومثلا من الذين خلوا من قبلكم وموعظة للمتقين. الله نور السماوات والأرض. مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها المصباح في زجاجة الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري يوكد من شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية يكاد زيتها يضيء ولو لم تمسسه نار نور على نور يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء ويضرب الله أمثالا للناس والله بكل شيء عليم في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال رجال لا تلههم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله وإقام الصلاة رجال لا تلههم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة يخافون يوما تتقلب فيه القلوب والأبصار ليجزيهم الله أحسن ما عملوا ويزيدهم من فضله والله يرزق من يشاء بغير حساب صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Jazakallah, brothers on air. I would now like to request Sister Naimat Fatima to please recite poetry with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Please recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A youthful face eaten by age, tears of blood having left their mark, wrinkles obedient to the torture of time, a testament to the pain in your heart. Purple veins strain against the paper-thin skin, history reflected in every crevice, resembling a patchwork quilt, a dilapidated edifice, shriveled, gray, and crumbling, embroidered with decay, charred with sorrow, with cobblestones of anguish paved, your face bearing a solemnness, yet radiating with nur. In your eyes I see mirrored the tragedy of Ashur. Vivid and brilliantly detailed images of the battlefield of Karbala. In a single afternoon, ruined was the garden of Zahra. Rose petals crushed, ripped from bud and stem, strewn across the burning plains, the most priceless of all gems. The story of every trampled flower written clearly in your gaze, a reality which for you cuts through time and space, a repetitive replay, Karbala, Kufa, and Sham. What is this I see in your eyes, O Sahib al-Zaman? What degree of difficulty has befallen an aged father? The spear was pulled in one swift motion from the wounded chest, however. The Prophet drowned in blood, this leaves him bewildered and shocked. Husain's heart is pierced with the spear of Ali Akbar's loss. And in your eyes I see the erosion of happiness and joy. an entire lifetime of labor, dedication, and toil destroyed, beauty, chivalry, and excellence converted to dust, a father's despair, a mother's dreams crushed. And how does one carry the burden when their back has collapsed? When to weep Husain doesn't have the shoulder of Abbas. His hands were severed at Furat, the water bag was split. That arrow weighed more heavily than any other blow or hit. And in your eyes I see the infinite limit of brotherhood and loyalty, which doesn't heed or surrender to whim's desire or opportunity. Alas, the children's hope for water with the sand mixes, the sun shattering into pieces as the moon eclipses. And it is sculpted in your memory as if it's quite fresh. The harmless child cuddled, held close to Husain's chest, an angelic infant to a lifeless existence reduced, the littlest warrior, yet the heaviest of all the proofs. And in your eyes I see tears, tears which you wish you could give, to Ali Asghar, his parched tongue running over his dry lips, a longing to assist a helpless father, to him a service extend, that three-headed arrow which brought Rabab's waiting to an end. And the earth and sky trembled, the entire galaxy in chaos. A sister stood 70 steps away from her brother, what must be her thoughts? As the dagger cut across Husain's throat as his veins were sliced. She must have thought that now, as Haydar, I must rise. And in your eyes I see truth and justice struggling under evil's feet. Guidance on all sides surrounded, the inheritor of revelation slaughtered like a sheep. In prostration upon a bed of arrows, the beard of infallibility bathed in red. Yanked by the mal'oon, upon a spear was placed his head. And the Ahle Haram were looted, the tents were set alight. The same way a rosary falls and breaks, Zahra's daughters scattered in the night. From one tent to the next, in terror and panic they rushed. Veil stolen from Sakina's ears, a stream of blood gushed. And in your eyes I see Sakina sleeping on the headless body of Husain. Women and children dragged, saddleless camels, whips and chains. Your forefathers disrespected, abased was their noble status. A trail of tears that passed from the bazaar to the palace. And the soldier exempted from battle, the one who traveled with his sisters, the one whose feet had developed bruises, welts, and blisters. Yet he never lost patience, even after each trial became exhausted. Calamities with his being had interlaced and deeply bonded. And in your eyes I see Yaqub lose his Yusuf 17 times. I see a little princess who in the prison was left behind, a nephew and an aunt who saved the ark of salvation, an Imam who taught the tyrants with mourning and supplication. And you are also anxious and distraught in occultation, O Imam. Renewed for you each day are the events of Karbala, Kufa, and Sham. For humanity is still hurting, bleeding is this earth from east to west, waiting for God's command to publicly commence your conquest. And in your eyes I see the crippling grief and cathartic therapy, the past and present, the future bearing quite the similarity, the yearning to go back or for time to somehow hasten. Mawla, in your eyes I see the wish for this ummah to awaken. In your eyes I see the wish for this ummah to awaken. In your eyes I see the wish for this ummah to awaken. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Jazakallah, Sister Namal, that was beautiful. One more loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I would now like to request Wajid Hussain Saab to please come forward and recite a salam with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajah.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. ایک سورہ فاتحہ کی درخواست ہے. آج میری مدر کی ڈیتھ اینیورسری ہے، تو اس کے لیے اور اپنے مرحومین کو شامل کرتے ہوئے اور وہ لوگ جن کی خدمات ہیں اس میں اور جن لوگوں کے پڑھنے والا نہیں ہے پروردگار، ان کے لیے ایک سورہ فاتحہ. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. دیار شام میں جب بے کسوں کو شام ہوئی، دیار شام میں جب بے کسوں کو شام ہوئی، وہ رات پیٹنے رونے ہی میں تمام ہوئی، ہوئی جو صبح کمر بستہ فوج شام ہوئی، ہوا یزید برآمد یہ دھوم دھام ہوئی، فلک ستائی مصیبت کی مبتلا زینب، فلک ستائی مصیبت کی مبتلا زینب، چلی یزید کی مجلس میں بے ردا، زینب دیار شام میں. بر محمد صلوات. فاتحہ. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. الحمد للہ مالک یوم الدین مستعین. اللہم بسم اللہ الرحمن. جب لٹ کے کربلا سے اسیر ستم چلے، جب لٹ کے کربلا سے اسیر ستم چلے، سجاد سر برہنہ بدرد و علم چلے، روتے سروں کو پیٹتے پابند غم چلے، زینب نے لاش شہ سے کہا بھائی ہم چلے، مرنے سے آپ کے میں یہ ایذا اٹھاتی ہوں، دربار میں یزید کے سر ننگے جاتی ہوں، ہے میرے مسافر کرب و بلا حسین، ہے میرے غریب میرے میں لقا حسین، ہے تجھے نہ پانی کا قطرہ ملا حسین، ہے تمام تن تیرا ٹکڑے ہوا حسین، ہے تمام تن تیرا ٹکڑے ہوا حسین، پیاسے گلے پہ خنجرے بیداد چل گیا، ہے تڑپ تڑپ کے تیرا دم نکل گیا، لے نینوا علی کی بضاعت تجھے ملی، اے کربلا خدا کی امانت تجھے ملی، اے خاک میری ماں کی ریاضت تجھے ملی، لے اے زمین شم میں امامت تجھے، دامن تیرا بھرا میری کھیتی اجڑ گئی، سرحد میں تیرے بھائی سے زینب بچھڑ گئی، ہائے یہ کہہ کے سر کو پیٹ کے روئی وہ دل جلی، آ کر نجف سے حال میرا دیکھو یا علی، گردن رسن میں آپ کی بیٹی کے ہے بندی، کہتے یہ کربلا سے وہ باچشم تر چلی، ہے میں کربلا مولا میں لٹ گئی، پردیس میں آ کے برادر سے چھوٹ گئی، ہے میں کربلا مولا میں لٹ گئی، پردیس میں آ کے برادر سے چھوٹ گئی، جا لٹ کے کربلا، درود محمد علیہ وسلم۔
Jazakallah wazir uncle. One more loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Respected Sheikh, elders, brothers and sisters in faith, Assalamu alaikum. My condolences to all Mu'mineen and the Imam of our time, Ajallallahu ta'ala farajahum. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Before I request the Sheikh to begin his speech, just a few announcements. Regarding tomorrow's program, the program tomorrow is going to start at 6:45 p.m. before Salatul Maghribin with Amal Arbaeen. The Amal will be performed here, and they will have English commentary by Sheikh Mahdi Rastani. After the Amal, we will have Salatul Maghribin, and the program will continue as today. For next weekend, inshallah, we will be commemorating the martyrdom of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Imam Husain alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And Imam al-Ghada alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Inshallah, it'll be a 2-night program. And we will be hosting our guest speaker for this event, Sayyid Hassan Ali Rizvi from Orlando here at CFK. The programs will start with Salatul Maghribin, and a detailed schedule will be sent out over WhatsApp and will be posted on our webpage as well. Just a quick reminder to all college students, the deadline to apply for CFK's internship is Monday, September 19th at midnight. And after that, the interview process will begin. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Brother Zuhair Bojani or find him here at the center today, or send an email to internship@cfkdfw.org. I would now like to request for everybody to recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumin of tonight's sponsors, the marhumin of Brother Anwar Raza and family, marhumin of Dr. Arshad Asghar and family, marhumin of Brother Azim, Sister Zoya Patel and family. Let us all include all our marhumin and the marhumin of the Ummah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. I would now like to request the Sheikh to please come to the minbar with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajahum.
Can you ask everyone to move forward?
Requesting everybody to please move forward so that there's space for the people who come in later. Let us move forward and recite a salawat in the process. Allahumma salli ala
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. One more salawat, please. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين أما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ومن الناس من يشتري لهو الحديث ليضل عن سبيل الله بغير علم ويتخذها هزوا أولئك لهم عذاب مهين وإذا تتلى عليه آياتنا ولى مستكبرا كأن لم يسمعها كأن في أذنيه وقرا فبشره بعذاب أليم صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على محمد. For the love of our beloved Prophet and his beloved progeny, please recite a second loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala. For the hastening in the return of our beloved 12th Imam, a third final loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Allow me to begin tonight's talk, inshallah, by offering my condolences on the Arbaeen of our beloved third Imam, Imam al-Husain, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad wa ajil faraj. The topic that we'll be discussing tonight and tomorrow night, inshallah, is the topic of Islam's take on music. And right out of the bat, I have to put a disclaimer out there. And that disclaimer is that this is a nuanced topic. It is a complex topic. And therefore, during these nights, tonight and tomorrow night, we will only be able to shed light on certain aspects of this topic. Inshallah, some other time we might have an opportunity to do a longer series on this topic. But tonight and tomorrow night, I want us to highlight the most important parts of this discussion so that we have a better understanding of this topic. And I'm sure that it's not lost on anybody the importance of discussing this topic. The reality is, the world that we live in today is a world that is full of music, no matter where you go, no matter where you are. Whether you're watching some videos online, typically there is some music associated with it. Maybe you're in the shopping mall, you might just be doing your shopping, there is music that is played there. You might be at the grocery store, there is music that is played there. You might be sitting in the masjid, and your neighbor might be playing some music as well. We live in a world today where it's almost impossible to escape music as a whole, as a category, yes? And in fact, you find, if you see an app like TikTok being the most used and the most frequented app on social media today, you will find that a lot of its success is owed to the fact that video and music are constantly paired with one another. In fact, if you look at the logo of this app, you will find, if you pay attention, that in fact the logo of this app is a musical note. That's the way it was designed. And though the name of the app has changed quite a bit here and there, the logo has still remained the same. And that shows and carries a lot of significance. So it's a topic that we cannot escape. This is on one hand. On the other hand, the second part of it is that this topic is also nuanced because music comes in all forms and in all shapes. There is music out there that can calm you down. There is music out there that can rile you up. There is music out there, for example, that can promote violence. It can promote drug abuse, substance abuse, drinking, whatever. And there is music sometimes that can be used in educational circumstances. There is music out there that's classical. There's music out there that is modern. There's music out there that can have all sorts of lyrics, and sometimes the lyrics are good, sometimes the lyrics are terrible. Music comes in all forms and in all shapes. There's music that can shed light on social issues, on political issues. So it comes in all forms and in all shapes. This is number 2. This is why this topic needs to be discussed. Number 3, the reason why it needs to be discussed is because the Islamic topic and the Islamic ruling on this topic has never really been clarified properly. As in, every time you have a conversation with someone around this topic, every person will have their own understanding of what type of music is allowed in Islam, what type of music is forbidden in Islam. You sit with one person, this person will tell you, yes, the type of music that makes you want to get up and dance, this music is haram. The type of music that doesn't do this, it's okay. You sit with your other friend, your other friend says, no, it's not about this. It depends, the one who is singing, is he from the same gender or is he from the opposite gender? If it's the opposite gender, it's a problem. If it's the same gender, there's no problem. You sit with the third person says, no, it's not based on this, it's based on the beat. If the beat goes really fast, this music is haram. In fact, when I was growing up, we were taught, if the music goes faster than your heartbeat, this music is haram. If the music goes slower than your heartbeat, then this music is allowed. Someone else comes along and says, no, you're wrong. The music that is a problem is music that has musical instruments involved in it. If it has instruments, then this is haram. If it's just singing, this is okay. A fifth person, sixth person comes and says, no, forget about all of this. It's based on your intention. If you have a good intention, there's no problem. If you have a bad intention, then it becomes a problem. And so on and so forth. The number of opinions you find about what type of music is allowed and what type of music is not allowed in Islam is probably more than the number of opinions you will come across in how to deal with a cold and a cough that you have. When it comes to a cough and a cold that you have, every family has their own special secret ingredients. One will tell you, take this lemon. The other one will tell you, take this honey. The other one will take this jushanda. The other one will tell you, take this, take that. Everyone has their own opinion. And it seems as though, when it comes to music, and what type is allowed in Islam, what type is forbidden in Islam, seems to be of this sort. This many opinions you find in Islam. All of this confusion, all of this complexity, and one might ask, why on the night of Arbaeen? Because this topic directly correlates with the Yazidi lifestyle and the Husaini lifestyle. So much so that you find in history, one of the individuals who was objected to for his constant indulgence in haram music and haram entertainment was none but the mal'oon who was Yazid. Abdullah ibn Abbas, famous companion of the Prophet, he raised objection to Yazid. He said, Yazid, how do you claim to be the Khalifa? How do you claim to be the successor of the Prophet when most of your time is spent with women who sing and dance in your presence? And hence, this is something that is directly correlating with the lifestyles of these two camps that are involved in the Battle of Karbala. In the Battle of Karbala, there's a side that represents Husain and Ahlul Bayt. There's a side that represents the Khalifa, the luxurious lifestyle, the life of sin. As part of this life of sin, one of the many factors you find is this haram type of music and haram type of entertainment. Therefore, there's probably no better night or nights for us to get into this topic than the nights that we are going through. And in order to delve into this topic, we're going to pose the following questions. Number one, what examples do we have from the life of the Prophet and the life of the Imams during their time, where music or singing was employed for different reasons, and generally what was their approach in this regard? Number two, can we assume Islam's position on a particular matter just by taking a look at the matter and guessing, or do we have to actually go to the sources that we have in Islam to understand what Islam's take is on this issue? Number three, what problem does Islam have with certain types of music anyways? What is the key factor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points out that says because of this, certain types of music are not allowed to be listened to? Number four, what is the concept of lahu? And how does it relate to the topic of music? Number five, are there verses of the Quran that address the topic of music? And number six, in the story of the marriage of Imam al-Jawad to the daughter of Ma'mun, which clearly was a forced marriage by Ma'mun, how did Imam al-Jawad react when Ma'mun wanted to make this gathering a gathering of sin and a gathering of haram music? And number 7, and finally, which companion of Imam al-Kadhim was it who used to live a life of sin, used to live a life of indulging in all sorts and all forms of corruption, but ended up changing his life 180 degrees because of one question and one sentence that Imam al-Kadhim asked him? Tonight, inshallah, we'll delve into these 7 questions with a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. If you look at music, it might be quite difficult to find a time in human history where it wasn't part of human civilization. It's always been there in one shape or one form. Yes, it has developed in its complexity. It has developed in the level of production quite a bit from back in the day. But to a certain extent, you'll always find the presence of music. At the end of the day, the only thing it takes is for you to find a pot and a pan, and you can produce some form of music in some shape or some form. And hence you find at the very beginning when the Prophet started his message, music, singing was something that was already present in the Arabian Peninsula. Though it was very rare, and it was not as dominant as it ended up being during the time of Bani Umayyah and Bani al-Abbas. During the time of the Prophet, the music and singing that you came across was very basic forms of music and singing, and it was quite limited. For example, they had the type of singing where a Bedouin was guiding his camels. In order to get these camels to move faster, he would recite. He would sing in the basic form, and the camels would react to this and they would move faster. This is a very well-known fact of living life as a Bedouin. And then there were types of singing and music that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started to object to when the Prophet came into the picture. The first of them was the type of singing and dancing they used to do when they used to come around the Kaaba. As part of the tawaf that the mushrikeen used to do around the Kaaba was a singing and dancing. And verse 35 of Surah Al-Anfal refers to this. وَمَا كَانَ صَلَاتُهُمْ عِنْدَ الْبَيْتِ إِلَّا مُكَاءً وَتَصْدِيًا. When they come to the house of Allah, they are clapping, they are whistling, they are singing. This was part of their entertainment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised objection to this. Then you had the singing of poems that used to mock the Prophet and used to mock his message. This was another one that the Prophet raised objection to. Then you had the form of singing where when the armies of Quraysh and the Kuffar used to come to the battlefield in order to give more energy to their warriors, in order to bring out that true masculinity that they had, they used to bring with them women who used to sing. And these women used to sing and tell them, listen, we love you so much, go to the battlefield, go and fight. Kind of like the concept you have today in sports, where some people are playing the sport, then you have women who are cheering them on, so to speak. This was another one that Islam raised objection to. And the fourth, and probably the most important, was that there were houses, there were areas that were known as places of corruption. You come here, men and women are mixing, men and women are drinking, and as part of the package, there naturally was singing and a form of music that was taking place as well. Nonetheless, during the time of the Prophet, the use of music and the use of singing was limited. It was during the time of Bani Umayyah and Bani al-Abbas where things started to spread like wildfire. If you look into the heritage that Bani Umayyah left behind, you find that there was a couple things they didn't do. There's a couple things they did a lot. One of the things they never did is they never built one school. The history of Bani Umayyah, they never ended up building a school for the people. A university, somewhere where people come to talk about knowledge. This never happened. One of the things you find that they did very well was the spreading of music and singing. And this was part of the plan. And when we go through the reason why Islam has a problem with some types of music, you will understand why this was part of the plan. And in particular, in the city of Mecca and Medina is where this type of music and singing had become very dominant. So much so that when singers used to come, thousands used to flock to them. So we have this in our historical narrations. Their names, some of them recorded in history. Fulan person, the famous singer of Mecca. Fulan person, the famous singer of Medina. So much so that, as we mentioned, Abdullah ibn Abbas went to Yazid one day. He said, you can't be doing this, because you say you're the Khalifa and the singing and dancing is happening in your courtyard 24/7. You continue down this road until the time of Bani al-Abbas, it was the same thing. And there are books written that explain to us the type of parties, gatherings that the Khulafa used to pay for from Baytul Mal to have singers, dancers, and other types of haram entertainment to take place in front of them. This is how this issue started to begin. And you always found that the Khulafa, in some shape or form, the Khulafa of Bani Umayyah and the Khulafa of Bani al-Abbas in particular, they were behind it in one shape or form. Fast forward to 1400 years later, you have classical music, you have romantic music, you have modern music, and you have the likes of Mozart and Beethoven and all of these types. It's very complex now. And now we want to understand what our take should be on this topic. Different scholars from different fields and different sciences come together to understand this concept of music, this phenomenon. Each of them from their own angle. Scientists, they study music. Philosophers, they study music. Psychologists, they study music. And so on and so forth. But out of all of these, the one that is more important for us to delve into with the limited time that we have is Islamic scholars. What was their take on this issue? And how did Islam understand this topic? Philosophers have a very interesting take on what this music is. They have studied this science for a very long time. It was part of the sciences that they used to study. Alongside math and alongside geometry and alongside this and that, there was the science of music. And if you break down the word music, in and of itself, it refers to the idea of bringing together different tones that makes it appealing for the human being to listen to this. This was a science that philosophers have talked about for hundreds of years. But Islamically, we want to understand, what is Islam's take in this regard? Before we delve into what Islam has to say in this regard, there is one stop that we need to make. And that stop is an important one for us to understand how to approach Islamic issues. Recite a salawat, please. That stop is this. Generally, when we come across a topic like music, and we want to see, is this something that's a problem or not a problem? Is this okay or is this not okay? Generally, you will find you and I assume things. We guess. Music, I don't know, it doesn't sound so terrible. It's not like you killed anybody. So Islam shouldn't really have a problem with it. Wait a second. Did you ask Islam? Islam has a tongue, it has a language, it speaks for itself. You go ask Islam. If Islam says I don't have a problem with it, no problem. Islam said I don't have a problem with it, you don't need to have a problem with it either. But did you ask Islam? Or did you just sit there and guess? Sometimes people say, Sheikh, does God really care if I listen to this music on my way to work? That's a really good question. I don't know. Let's go ask him. Let's ask Quran, let's ask Hadith. Do you have a problem if I'm listening to this music in my car on the way home? It's a valid question. Does God really care about this? I don't know. We have to ask God. You ask God, he'll tell you, I either have a problem with it or I don't have a problem with it. But don't sit there and guess. And when he tells you what he thinks, don't sit there and say, I don't think that's the best approach. This is a problem. This is a problem. The mushrikeen of Quraysh used to do this as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to tell them, listen, these idols you're worshiping, stop saying that by worshiping these idols, you'll have a better place on the Day of Judgment. Stop saying by worshiping these idols, they have a special relationship with me, hence when you worship them, you have a special place in my heart. Don't say this. I don't believe in these idols, the Quran used to say. They used to say, no, these idols are a real thing, we're going to worship them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has this one line, it's very powerful one line. Anytime you find yourself adding something to the religion or taking away something from the religion, you have to remember this one line. He said, Ya Rasulullah, tell them, قُلْ أَتُنَبِّئُونَ اللَّهِ بِمَا لَا يَعْلَمُ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Are you going to sit there and teach God now? You're going to tell God how things are to work? You don't have knowledge. What do you mean? He said there, I don't think this approach is the right approach. But Quran says it, Hadith says it. Yeah, I know, but I don't think it's the best approach. This is haram, but it doesn't feel like a big deal for me. أَتُنَبِّئُونَ اللَّهِ. You're switching the spot of teacher and student apparently. Yes? Oh yes, Ya Allah, you're the one who created us and all this kind of stuff. But come here, na'udhu billah, God forbid, you will forgive me. Come here, sit here, let me teach you what your religion is supposed to look like. Let me tell you what your rules ought to be. You don't have that permission. It's breaking news. God doesn't care what you think about his rules. He loves you, he cares for you. He loves you more than your parents love you. Yes, he's merciful, he's kind, he's all this kind of stuff. But listen, you don't have the knowledge to talk about these things. You're that same human being who used to be a drop of fluid. God created you. Everything is settled down now. You've turned into an adult. All of this kind of stuff. Now all of a sudden you want to argue with him. Where were you when he was creating you, when they were giving birth to you, and all of that kind of stuff? What happened to all of that? No, I don't care about that. The Quran says, أَوَلَمْ يَرَى الْإِنسَانِ أَنَّا خَلَقْنَاهُ مِن نُطْفَةٍ. Doesn't the human being we remember? We created him from a drop of fluid. فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ. Now all of a sudden he's arguing with us. Like he's a thing. You're not even a thing. What are you talking about? I'm not a thing. You're not a thing. None of us are things. We're barely even existing. Our heart is pumping because he's pumping it for us. And then you and I sit there and say, I don't think this approach is the best approach. Who are you? Who am I? None of us have a say in these matters. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has this knowledge. You and I have to kneel in front of Quran and Ahlul Bayt. They tell us how things work. This is how it is. Yes? Some of us, we might have missed the banner on the door when we were coming in. The banner on the top said Islam, which literally means submission. And then you and I made our way into this faith, and then we're like, yeah, we're cool with this faith, except for the submission part. Excuse me, that's kind of what it's called. It's called Islam. It means submitting yourself. That's who you are. You said, I'm Muslim. That means you submitted yourself. You and I don't have knowledge. You and I are the human being. If we live 100 years, you don't get wiser than 100 years, yes? I think the record is 105, 110, something like this, yes? You live 100 years. Half of that time, you're asleep. Half of that time, you're asleep. The other fourth of that time, you're eating and, taking care of your bodily functions and so on and so forth. The other half, you're dealing with your career. When did you come up with the philosophy of life that now you can sit there and say, I think this is what we should do? No, he created you. He's going to tell you how things work. Now, you might say, well, it's difficult. I fall short. Well, that's why he is merciful. That's why he'll forgive your sins, yes? Sometimes people will say, oh, Sheikh, don't say this is haram, that's haram. Our youth already are difficult to get them to come close to religion. They already don't come to the masjid. Now we say this is haram, then it's going to be no, this is not why the youth sometimes don't come to the masjid. There's a lot of other reasons why. This is not one of them. No, the youth wants to come to the masjid. He wants to learn what Islam is outside of the cultural understanding of what Islam is. He wants to understand what Islam is. He appreciates this. We speak of the laws of Islam, and we speak of them because this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. You say, well, Shaykh, I struggle. Wonderful, I struggle too. We all struggle. That's why he's merciful. That's why he takes your hand. That's why 114 times he says, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. That's why he says this. So we have to go to the sources, see what Quran and Hadith says. We can't be making up our own opinions about these topics. Recite a salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We go to Quran and Hadith, and typically we might assume that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a problem with music for one of the following 4 or 5 reasons. So, well, this music, it promotes violence. Does music promote violence sometimes? Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. This music, it has sexual references. Does music have this? Well, definitely. A lot of times, yes. This music, it promotes substance abuse. Does it do it? Oh yes, definitely. This music speaks about people drinking, all of this kind of stuff, yes, getting intoxicated. Islam has a problem with these things because music is talking about these things. Hence, Islam has a problem with music. This is the general approach that we will take to this topic. Except there is one ingredient that Islam has a problem with. Meaning, if the music doesn't contain any of these, but it contains this fifth ingredient, it is still a problem from Islam's perspective. This is the part where it's getting nuanced now. If it's a music that doesn't consist of these things, when I say music, either it's instruments or the singing, we're putting these together for practical reasons. Scholars have separate discussions on these, but for practical reasons, I'm putting these together. If this music or singing doesn't consist of any of these, but it has ingredient number 5, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a problem with it. But I thought that's all there was. I thought the violence was the problem. Yes? I thought the references were the problem. I thought the drinking, the substances abuse was the problem. Those are the problems. Those are problems. But there is another problem Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has with music and singing. That problem is the problem of lahu. Lahu. L-A-H-W. Lahu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in multiple verses of the Quran, He says, listen, you should not be indulging in lahu. It is haram for you to indulge in lahu. What is lahu? What does this even mean? Lahu means the type of activity you indulge in and of itself, it doesn't consist of sin. But it makes you less likely to remember your purpose in life, makes you less likely to pray, makes you less likely to fast, makes you less likely to remember the akhirah, makes you less likely to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It distracts you from the priorities in life. This is what lahu means. Bona fide concept in so many verses, so many narrations. You indulge in something that brings lahu to you, meaning the level of distraction that now makes you less likely to engage in your duties towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether that is remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether that is remembering the akhirah, whether that is carrying out your duties, your fasting, your praying, so on and so forth. If the distraction reaches that point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stamps it, says this is lahu, this is haram. This concept is a concept we are a bit confused about. Why? Because it's one of those evils that doesn't consist of an evil in and of itself. It is one of those evils, pay attention, that opens the door to many other evils. Some evil things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about, in and of themselves, they are evil. Murder is evil in and of itself. When someone gets murdered, no one asks, is this a bad thing, is this a good thing? When a child gets killed, God forbid, no one asks, is this a bad thing? Is this a good thing? Unless you're Sabra, the new Marvel character. When you have a Palestinian child who's been killed, then you might ask, is he human? He's not human. Other than that, no one asks these questions. Other than that, everyone says murder's evil. Lying, everyone says this is evil. Cheating, everyone says this is evil. These are the types of evil that are evil in and of themselves, yes? Then there's the type of evil that opens the door to many evils. It doesn't consist of evil itself. It is evil because it opens the door. It's a gateway. This is the ability that music has. If music falls under this lahwi category, where I listen to it and it makes me forget about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, makes me less likely to remember akhirah, less likely this, less likely that, this level of distraction, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a problem with it. If it has drug abuse in it, that's a second reason why it's haram. If it doesn't have it, still haram. It's lahwi music. It is the type of evil that opens the door to many other evils, this distraction. Now someone might ask, but Shaykh, I do a lot of other things that might distract me. I have a lot of hobbies. When I'm doing those hobbies, I'm not necessarily thinking about akhirah. In fact, when I do those hobbies, I'm not thinking about akhirah at all. I might watch a movie. It's a scary movie. I'm not thinking about God. I might sit down and watch a football game. When I'm watching the football, I'm not thinking about God. I might sit down and watch this basketball game. I'm not thinking about God. In fact, when I engage with that hobby, it's exactly to remove my concerns and my worries and my priorities in life. Yes? When I sit down and I indulge in this hobby, you know what happens? I forget about my deadlines. I forget about my worries in life. I forget about these things. Distraction. So then this shouldn't be a problem. No, there is a big difference between the two. It's a big difference between the two. You know why? Because none of those things are as powerful as music can potentially be in certain situations. Those hobbies have the same type of effect on you. They distract you from worldly concerns, even maybe from akhirah. You're indulging in hobby. But they're not as powerful as music. The extent, the severity of the effect, not even close. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed them because they're minimal. No problem, minimal effect, it's okay. You can indulge in it, it's okay. But if it reaches to something where the impact is very, very heavy, as powerful as haram music can be, then he says, no, we have to draw the line here. You know what it's like comparing these hobbies to haram music? It's like comparing Tylenol with morphine. Tylenol and morphine, do they have roughly the same impact on the human being? Roughly. They'll both remove your pain. The type of effect that they have, impact, they have, roughly the same. Are they the same? No. They're not the same at all. You take this Tylenol, the doctors say, okay, like, you can take it, no problem, yeah? We have to run a disclaimer here, yes? Consult with your doctor. Don't take Tylenol because Sheikh said. Sheikh definitely has no medical knowledge. I can tell you that for sure. But if you went to the doctor, even before you go to the doctor, if you take this Tylenol, would the doctor freak out when he hears about it? No, he might say it's better not for you to take it or whatever the case may be. Tylenol, why? Because the impact is so minimal. He says it's okay. But go to the doctor, say, you know what? I took some morphine before I came. And this doctor's like, no, what did you do? Say, but the impact is the same impact. They both remove my pain. Yes, but the severity, the difference between the severity is night and day. Some things have minimal impact. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed them. Yes, you can engage in watching this football game. During the time you're watching this football game, you probably think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 0 times. Is this haram? No, it's not haram. Because the impact is minimal. You increase this impact, then you'll see why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considered this haram. This is a concept that is new to us. We'll struggle to understand this initially, yes? But music is very powerful. Here's how you can understand the power that music has. I'll give you 3 examples. Number 1, imagine you enter into a gathering that is a gathering of sin, gathering of haram. The people are partying, yes? All sorts of sin are happening here. Gambling is happening here, betting is happening here, drinking is happening here, mixing between genders is happening here, all the stuff you want to think about, yes? Imagine if you took that gathering and you just made one change in it, one. I'm not asking for you to stop the mixing. I'm not asking for you to stop all the other things. Let people do whatever they want to do, right? It's a hypothetical situation, yes? Just make one change in it, one. Cut the music. What happens to this gathering? All of a sudden, this gathering becomes extremely dry. All of a sudden, people who were so much more likely to indulge in these sins, now they're like, the atmosphere isn't there. What do the cops do when they come to the party? What's the first thing they do? To shut down the whole thing. They cut the music. This is the power of music. It doesn't carry that evil in and of itself, but it sets the stage and the atmosphere for tens of other sins to happen. You cut that music, this gathering goes from a gathering that was smooth and wonderful to an extremely dry gathering. You're like, where's the atmosphere? Where's the energy? There's no music in this thing. That's exactly the point. That is the power of music. You're on a drive. You're going to go 6 hours to some other city, yes? How is it that in these 6 hours, the first half an hour, you're excited because you thought this road trip would be amazing? Now you've driven for an hour and you already have 5 hours left. It's like, we probably shouldn't have made this trip. Anyways, when you get to that point, you've already bought your snacks, you already stopped at Buc-ee's, all this kind of stuff. When you're regretting it now, How is it that things change so much when you turn on that music? You still have to drive 6 hours. But somehow, some way, that 6 hours with the music is different from the 6 hours without the music. They're very different from each other, depending on the level of impact that the music has. Sometimes it's minimal, sometimes it is very deep. What changed around you? Nothing changed around you. This is the power of music. Music, remember this, music has the ability, it has the power to change your world mentally without changing anything in the world around you. This is the power of music. It creates the illusion that your whole world changed, and in reality, nothing around you changed. And this is exactly the problem Islam has with certain types of music. When this impact is amplified, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, this is haram. I can't have you thinking you don't have duties, you don't have worries, you don't have concerns. Not the worries and concerns of this world, the worries and concerns of your akhirah. I need you to remember why you were created. Stop numbing yourself with this music. This is the power of music. Those worries, concerns, when I'm listening to that music, they're still waiting for me at the end of that soundtrack. They're not going anywhere. My deadline that I had for the essay for college is still there. The deadline I have for my career is still there. The worry I have in my life is still there. But somehow, some way, I'm kicking this down the road because while I'm listening to this, I don't have to pay attention to any of that stuff. It gives you the feeling that a lot of things changed when in reality, nothing changed around you. Music, this is example number 3. Music has the power. Music has the power to numb you to your core to such an extent where you can shoot civilians and kill them in cold blood. How do you think these soldiers do this? How do you think in the Iraq war these soldiers were going? The videos, some of which are coming out nowadays, yes? Laughing, joking about people's lives. Some of them report this. Part of this was the type of music we were listening to. It numbed us. We would do whatever we wanted to do. It wouldn't even bother us. You say, well, Sheikh, I'm never going to go shoot anyone. Of course. Thank God. But that's not where Islam draws the line. That's the extreme. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala draws the line a lot earlier than this. Yes? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when it comes to man and woman, He doesn't draw the line at, oh, if it leads to adultery. That's haram. He draws the line a lot earlier than that. He says, if you look at this man and woman with lust, this is haram. That's where He draws the line. Not all the way over there. For you to say, well, I won't do this extreme form of it, then it's okay. No, He draws the line a lot earlier. This is the power that music has. And whenever you come to this part of the topic, then people will turn around to you and say, so there are certain types of music that's haram, Sheikh? Yes, there's certain types of music that's haram. You say, but Sheikh, music is a very powerful thing. It's a very influential thing. It's a very universal thing. And when did I say it wasn't? That's exactly the point. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declares something haram, this line is very important. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declares something haram, He's not saying it's not powerful. He's not saying it's not significant. He's not saying it's not influential. He's saying because it's powerful, significant, influential, I'm going to declare it haram. Because of the power it has, I'm going to say it's haram. Of course, it's a very powerful thing. That is why certain types of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says haram. Otherwise, if it wasn't as powerful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wouldn't have even bothered. The same way He hasn't made watching that, football game for you haram. Doesn't have much of an effect. Go ahead. It's because of this power. If we understand this framework that Islam has put in front of us, let us now go to the verses of the Quran to understand this topic better. Recite a salawat, please. When you go to the verses of the Quran, someone might ask, do the verses of the Quran address the topic of music? Do we have a verse in the Quran that says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tastami'u ila Drake? Do we have a verse in the Quran that says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu inna Eminem haramun? Do we have this? Unfortunately not. But do we have general verses in the Quran that consider certain types of music to be haram? Yes. In fact, there's 7 to 10 verses that have been referenced to show us which verses of the Quran or which types of music can potentially be haram. The first of them, and the most important of them, verse 6 from Surah Luqman, says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ. There are amongst people those who come up with speech that is lahwi. Lahwi meaning what? The rest of the verse says, لِيُذِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. To pull people away from the path of Allah. Pull people away from the path of Allah how? In their remembrance of Allah, in their duties of Allah. This type, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَبَشِّرْهُ بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. Punishment for this. This is a problem. You might ask, well, you're interpreting this verse to refer to music, this type of speech. No, the Imam himself, when the verse was revealed, when they talked about the verse, the Imam himself said, Wallahu al-ghina. By Allah, this is music. This is the singing that you guys do. The Imam has hadith interpreting this verse to mean what? As the prominent example of it, to mean the music and singing. Not all music and singing. لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. The one who takes you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes? Now when you look into the sha'n and nuzul of this verse, why was this verse revealed? You find there's this guy, Nadhr ibn Harith. What Nadhr ibn Harith used to do was very simple. Take a look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declared his activity haram. You compare it to the music we have today. Nadhr ibn Harith used to go around. He used to tell people about the stories and the legends and myths of the Greek and the Persians. But he used to do this so that people's ears were full of these things. When Muhammad came and told them about a God and this and that, they were either too busy with these stories or they had heard enough of it and they would say, yeah, whatever. This was his intention. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed verses of Quran saying, this is a problem. Here's the point I want to make that relates to your life and my life. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took this guy who was just telling stories, and through that he was pulling people slowly away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he declared him haram, his activity, you don't think the type of music that's produced today with millions of dollars behind it, with professionals who work day in and day out to make this music tuned in the most specific of ways, you don't think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have a problem with this? This guy came, he was sharing stories, legends, myths. Did he have ultra, the best of cameras and the best of mics and the best of audio systems? He didn't have any of these. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, listen, what you do, generally it takes people away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is haram. What about the stuff that's produced today at the level of production that it's produced? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a problem with this. This is one verse of the Quran that speaks about this. The second verse of the Quran, verse 30 from Surah Al-Hajj, he says, وَقَوْلِ الزُّورِ, and those who speak false speech. You might say, well, false speech means a lot of things. Imam came himself, he said, by false speech, he means ghina. By false speech, he means the singing, the music. This is a problem. And we have multiple verses of the Quran that speak of this concept, of this idea. And multiple narrations where the Imams came and said, listen, this is what the verse is referring to. That thing that you guys do, this is what the verse is referring to. Does the Quran address the topic of music? Absolutely, it does. And yet some of us still will sit there, na'udhu billah, I might be in that group, and say, I don't know about this. It doesn't seem so terrible to me. Yes, because your knowledge is limited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge is not limited. When he says something, we have to listen to him. Recite a salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Therefore, you find the rulings of the Maraja revolves around this concept of lahwi, the type of music that takes you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Except there is one more element here that we have to point out as we move on. There is one more element, and this is very critical, and 99% of people will miss out on this element. There's one more element in the ruling of the Maraja that they've understood from these verses of Quran and Hadith. And that is this. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says lahwi music is haram, he means the type of music that generally within society is considered lahwi. Not the type of music that you listen to necessarily and has a lahwi effect on you per se. I listened to this music, I didn't feel anything. That's not what matters. Got the point. The element is, how is it seen within society? Did the verse of the Quran say, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, the music is haram, that when you listen to it, then you don't want to pray anymore? Or did it say lahwi music is haram? What society deems to take people away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If the ruling revolved around the effect that it has on me, guess what? Every piece of music after 20, 30 times would become halal. Because there's no type of music that you will ever listen to that after 50 times doesn't lose its effect. After 50 times you listen to this, it's just whatever in the back of your mind. The first time, it has a big impact. Second time, third time. The 50th time you listen to it, you may not even hear it anymore. You might be driving thinking about something else. If it was based on the effect it has on you per se, all this music would become haram after 50 times. All you had to do is listen to it 50 times, do tawbah, and then it's halal for you. I just gave some of these guys an idea. No, the ruling is based on how society deems this. Hence, you will find the ruling of Ayatollah Khamenei is what? He says music that is generally seen within society to take people away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This music is haram. Music that is generally seen within society, Ayatollah Sistani's ruling. He says generally music that is seen to be compatible with haram gatherings. This music is haram. Oh, I listened to it, it didn't have a negative effect on me. That's not part of the ruling. Doesn't matter. I listened to it, I didn't feel like tapping my feet, so it's okay. No, that's not part of the ruling. Generally, yes. And you find when it came to this type of music, the Ahlul Bayt were very cautious. We have not even gotten into the narrations. Tomorrow we'll talk about the 8 categories of narrations that we have around the topic of music. That we'll leave for tomorrow. But generally you find Ahlul Bayt were very cautious when it came to music. And when haram music was played, they didn't take it as something that's okay, no problem. No, they made it clear that they are not okay. Because their role, of course, is different from my role and your role. My role and your role, we have to take care of ourselves. Their role, they were stars of guidance. If someone is going to come play this music that is haram in front of them, he has to get up and object openly. Because people are going to look at him. He's the role model. His role is a bit different from you and I. Ma'ar Maraja, they say if you go to a place, there's haram music, it's better not to go. But if you're forced to go, you don't listen, it's okay. You just hear it, it's okay. But for an imam, this is different. He's the role model, yes? He's ma'asum, he's on a different level. And hence when you find Ma'mun al-Abbasi wanted to force Imam al-Jawad to marry his daughter Fadl, and he started to put together this super luxurious wedding. As part of this wedding, he had music built into it on purpose. Because part of his plan that he had also tried with the father of Imam al-Jawad, Imam al-Rida, was to create a situation where he gets these imams used to the luxurious lifestyle in the palace. His hope was, if I expose these guys to this lifestyle, maybe they won't be so, hard and so firm in their path anymore. Maybe they'll loosen up. Yeah, you and I, we're very firm. Then someone gives us a little bit of money, then we're like, oh, okay. Then they invite us to your houses. Oh, okay. Luxurious lifestyle. We're like, oh, it's not so bad after all. This was the goal Ma'mun had. He put together the whole wedding. As part of the wedding, he had put together one of the most luxurious weddings possible. As part of the wedding, he had other younger women come and congratulate the 9th Imam. Why? This is part of his plan. Let him see everything that goes on in a palace. Let him see this lifestyle of sin. As part of this wedding, he had what? He had someone who was going to come and play some instruments. And this person's name was Mukhariq. Mukhariq, the Ma'mun told him, go and play. If you're able to get Imam al-Jawad into this music, you have a reward with me. He said, I can do it. I play so beautifully, I can pull it off. He came. These younger women came. Each of them gave some gold to the 9th Imam, part of the plan. The narration says the Imam didn't even look up. They all went. The luxurious tablecloth and food is all set up. All of this is ready to go. Ma'mun turned to Mukhariq. He said, begin. He started to play his instruments. You and I hear this instrument, it may not be so terrible for us. But back in the day, this was a big part of how haram music was produced. He started to play his instruments, And he went on, and the Imam kept waiting. He knows what he's doing is wrong. And he knows this is not a normal person, this is the Imam. He kept going on, and the Imam kept waiting, and kept going on, until the Imam turned to him. He said, Ittaqillah, be fearful of God. What are you doing? And the narration says, Mukhariq, his hand couldn't play anymore. The narration says he walked away from that gathering. He was shivering. And when he walked away, a number of days later, Ma'mun found him. He said, what happened? We had a plan. You were supposed to pull him into this stuff. He said, the moment he said, Ittaqillah, be fearful of God, I couldn't play anymore. And since then, I cannot play with my hand anymore. The Ahlul Bayt were serious about this. Do you have to yell at someone in the middle of the street? No, this is not for you and I. This is for the Imam in that particular situation where the respect of an Imam and a guide and a role model is being disrespected. His approach is that approach in that particular situation. You and I, when we get indulged in these things, we have to come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which companion of the 7th Imam was there who was so indulged in music and parties and gatherings of this type? But with one question the Imam asked him, he changed his life 180 degrees. This one was no one but Bishr al-Hafi. Bishr, the barefooted one. The story of Bishr al-Hafi goes something like this. He used to live in Baghdad when Imam al-Qadim was there as well. People started to complain about Bishr to Imam al-Qadim. Ya Ibn Rasulullah, we have a problem. This guy, he puts on the best parties. Puts on the best gathering. Because of this, all of our children, all of our youth, everyone wants to go attend. His house has become a place of corruption. And the Imam said, fine, I'll see if I can convince him to stop doing this. The narration says, one time when they were having their party, the Imam started to make his way beside the house. He passed by the house. As he was passing by the house, one of the servants of the house came out to throw out some of the trash, to get rid of some of the trash in the gathering. When she came out, she saw this man standing there. And they looked at each other. And Imam al-Qadim asked her, and she didn't know who this was. And Imam al-Qadim asked her, she said, listen, I have a question real quick. The person who owns this house, hurrun am abdun? Is he free or is he a servant of someone? Back in the day, you were either free or you were a servant of someone. But what the Imam was referring to is, does he think he can do whatever he wants to do, or does he see himself as a servant of God? He said, hurrun am abdun? Free or servant? And this lady looked at Imam al-Qadim and laughed and said, of course he's free. How do you think he put together this party? If he was free, he would be working at someone's house. He wouldn't be out here putting together his own party. She didn't understand what the Imam was saying. She went inside. Bish saw her. Bish said, where did you go? What happened? She said, went to put out some of the trash. When I went out, this guy came. He asked a very odd question. It didn't even make sense to me. He said, hurrun am abdun? Is he free or is he a servant? And Bishr understood what he meant by this. And the narration says Bishr ran out of his house without any sandals on his feet. Hence Bishr al-Hafi, Bishr the barefooted one. He ran after Imam al-Qadim. He said, Ya Imam al-Qadim, this is what you said? I said, yes. I asked her, do you think you're a free person or a servant? Because if you were a servant, you would have been fearful of the one watching you. But clearly you believe you're a free person. You don't see yourself as a servant. And Bishr broke down and completely changed his lifestyle to a point where he became some of the companions of Imam al-Qadim. You and I will struggle. The doors of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is open. This is the significance of this family. This is the beauty of this family. This family who with one sentence, they can change the life of a whole person. This is the family who will be paraded during these days and nights throughout the city of Kufa and Sham. Sallallahu alayki ya Zainab ya al-Masa'ib. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Let us take our hearts, brothers and sisters, to the city of Kufa, the city of Sham. Let us take our hearts to those areas, to those places where the family of Ahlul Bayt were going through the most difficult of tragedies. One of those moments on the 10th of Muharram that was so difficult, it was so painful. is when the final moments came where the family of the Ahlul Bayt were told to move away from Karbala. And they had to come and say their final farewell to the bodies of the shuhada. This is a very difficult moment for Zainab. This is a very difficult moment for Kulthum. This is a difficult moment for Sukaina. This is a difficult moment for Imam as-Sajjad. The narration says they forced them out of the city of Karbala. By the next day, in the next 1 or 2 days, they forced them out of the city of Karbala. But when they were forcing them out of the plains of Karbala, part of the plan was to have these men and women, whoever was remaining, these women and children, to pass by the bodies of the shuhada. Let them see the bodies of their loved ones. Let them see the bodies of their loved ones that aren't buried. Let them see the bodies of their loved ones just lying there in the middle of the desert. This was painful. Some of these women and children didn't even know what was happening. Some of these children might even be confused. Where is our uncle Abbas? Where is our uncle Ali al-Akbar? Where is Qasim? Where is Ali al-Asghar? And yet they are forced to move through the plains of Karbala. The narration says as they started to move, these women and children, they started to come and throw themselves on the bodies of some of these shuhada. The narration says Zainab came out. She started to cry out. She said, Wa Muhammada salla alayka malikus sama. Hada Husainun bil ara. This is Husain. This is your grandson. This is the one who used to put on your shoulders. This is the one who you used to kiss, the one you used to embrace. This is Husain bil ara. His body is left in the middle of the desert. Murammalun bid dima. His body is covered with his own blood. And she continued. She said, Muqatta'ul a'dha. The body is not even in the same shape and form that it used to be. And she continued and she said, Oh Muhammad, you know that they took his life while he was still thirsty. They took his life before they even gave him a little bit of water. The narration says as the women and children move on, then Sukaina, the daughter of Imam al-Husayn, Kulthum, she comes and throws herself on the body of Imam al-Husayn. And the narration says, فَشَهِقَ شَهِقَاتٍ. She started to breathe heavily and heavily until she fainted. And while she had fainted, she saw her father who had come to her and recited this poetry that we recite 1400 years later. He recited, My Shia, from now on, whenever you drink a little bit of cool water, remember the one who had no cool water to drink on the 10th of Muharram. My Shia, whenever you come across someone who is alone, whenever you come across someone who is gharib, whenever you come across someone who is helpless, who doesn't have anyone around him, fandubuni, mourn the one and remember the one who was left alone in the plains of Karbala. And the lines of the poem continue until you come to this painful line that Imam al-Husayn told his daughter. He said, Tell my Shia, laytakum yawma ashura jami'an tanduruni. I wish you were all there on the 10th of Muharram to witness this one moment, this one painful moment that I went through, this moment of agony that I went through. Oh Imam al-Husayn, what moment is this? He said, remember that moment, كَيْفَ أَسْتَسْقِي لِطِفْلِي. The way I was asking for water, the way I was pleading for water for Ali al-Asghar. فَأَبَوْا أَن يَرْحَمُونِي. But they didn't give me any water. Instead, you know what they did? فَسَقَوْهُ سَهْمَ بَغْيٍ عِوَذَ الْمَاءِ الْمَعِينِ. Instead of giving my little son some water, they shot him with a three-headed arrow. The narration says Hussein held up his son. When this arrow hit the baby, then the blood came out. He took the blood and he threw it to the skies. He said, Hawwana alay. Oh Allah, I can only take this pain because you're watching. If you weren't watching me, if you weren't here, I would never be able to take this. This is when the family of the Ahlul Bayt was leaving Karbala. When they came back to Karbala, they had pain and difficulty and tragedies. Now, based on some narrations, they've even lost Ruqayya, they've even lost Sukaina. Now they've come with the tragedies of Kufa and Sham. Now they've come with the tragedies of the women throwing stones at them from the roofs. Now they've come with the tragedies of being paraded throughout the cities of Kufa and Sham. Imagine what happened to them when they started to come back to Karbala, when they started to see those plains once again. Imagine what went through the hearts of these women and children. Imagine the emotions that come back to them. They remember what happened on the 10th of Muharram. You can imagine maybe when they came back at that time, each one of them found the grave of one of these shuhada and went and sat by the grave of one of these shuhada. Maybe some of the children went and sat by the grave of Abu al-Fadl Abbas, their uncle. This uncle of theirs who had told them, I would bring water, and went to bring them water, and these children never got to see him again. Maybe some of them went and sat by the grave of Imam al-Husain. Some of them might have went and sat by the grave of Ali al-Akbar. Maybe the mother of Ali al-Akbar went and sat by his grave. But there is one grave, brothers and sisters, one small grave, one tiny grave, that you can be sure and I can be sure the mother of this shaheed must have gone and sat by his grave. And this is no one but the grave of Ali al-Asghar. What goes through the heart of a mother who loses a child at that age? What goes through the heart of a mother or father who sees the moment where their child is not breathing in front of them? The pain that went through the heart of Husain, the pain that went through the heart of Zainab, the pain that went through the heart of Ramla, we will never understand their pain. Imagine as each of them sits by one of these graves and starts to cry and mourn the tragedies of Karbala. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then He gives us the tawfiq and the opportunity to be amongst the true followers of the Ahlul Bayt, inshaAllah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of those who are going through difficulty and pain, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivers them from their difficulties and pains, inshaAllah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of those who are dealing with oppression anywhere around the world, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivers them from their oppression, inshaAllah. And finally, last but not least, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the return of our beloved 12th Imam bin Nabiyyi wa alih. رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ماتم حسين. يا حسين. يا حسين.
Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain,
Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain. Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain.
वो खून रोके
ये कहता रहा ज़माने से, वो खून रोके ये कहता रहा ज़माने से, वो खून रोके ये कहता रहा ज़माने से, वो खून रोके ये कहता रहा ज़माने से, वो खून रोके ये कहता रहा ज़माने से। रिदाए छीनो ना, रिदाए छीनो ना लोगों मेरे घराने से, वो खून रोके ये कहता रहा ज़माने से, वो खून रोके ये कहता रहा ज़माने से। रिदाए छीनो یہ کہتا
رہا زمانے
سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے سوال آپ پہ سونے پہ اس کے رونے پہ سوال آپ پہ سونے پہ اس کے رونے پہ وہ مارتے تھے وہ مارتے تھے سکینہ کو ہر بہانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے بلائے کس طرح پاس کو مدد کے لیے بلائے کس طرح پاس کو مدد کے لیے وہ بیردا تھی وہ بیردا تھی جھجکتی رہی بلانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے سلایا جاتا تھا بے ہوش کر کے دلوں سے سلایا جاتا تھا بے ہوش کر کے دلوں سے جگایا جاتا تھا جگایا جاتا تھا عابد کو تازیانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے کچھ اس طرح سر کر وہ بلا وہ اجڑے تھے کچھ اس طرح سر کر وہ بلا وہ اجڑے تھے کہ ڈر رہے ابھی تک وہ گھر بسانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے کہا یہ گنج شہیدہ میں باپ کے سر نے کہا یہ گنج شہیدہ میں باپ کے سر نے مجھے سکینہ بلاتی ہے قید خانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے رہا زمانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے کہا یہ گنج شہیدہ میں باپ کے سر نے کہا یہ گنج شہیدہ میں باپ کے سر نے مجھے سکینہ بلاتی ہے قید خانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے وہ خون روکے یہ کہتا رہا زمانے سے یا حسین 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 اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں، 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 میں وارث تطہیر ہوں، میں وارث تطہیر ہوں، ناموس نبی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت ہوں، بازار سے دربار میں لے آئے ہو مجھ کو، چاہوں تو جلا سکتی ہوں خطبوں سے میں تم کو، صابر کی بہن ہوں جو میں خاموش کھڑی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں، افسوس کنیزی میں اسے مانگ رہے ہو، تم جس کے غلاموں کی غلامی میں رہے ہو، یہ ظلم نہ ہوگا کبھی میں زندہ بھی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں، تم اپنے پیغمبر کو اگر دیکھنا چاہو، نیزے پہ جو یہ سر ہے اسے غور سے دیکھو، ہم شکل پیغمبر ہے یہ میں اس کی پھوپھی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں زہرا کو بھی دربار میں تم نے تھا بلایا، دربار میں بھی ہوں مگر فرق ہے اتنا، پردے میں تھی وہ اور میں بے پردہ کھڑی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں میں بنت علی ہوں، زندہ تھا تو ڈر ڈر کے ہمیں شاہی لڑے ہو، اب سر ہے تو ہونٹوں پہ چھڑی مار رہے ہو، تم کتنے بہادر ہو میں یہ دیکھ رہی ہوں، اے شام کے لوگوں بنت علی
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. متوجہ زیارت.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين، السلام على 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين، السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.